All right then. We're here with Uncle Fancy, aka Josh Cavalier, aka Ginger Snipes, AKA's Go On Forever. Then old Jason Ricks here. We're not getting into his AKAs because we have kids watching these shows, but we're glad to have Uncle Dirty and Uncle Fancy here. But we want to talk about the Accufire Triple Threat Throwdown. I said it right that time. That we just got back from. It was, or not got back from, that we did. We planned, we organized, we did all the things. It was the first of many for us. The first annual one around that time that we're going to have the Triple Threat Throwdown. And we're going to get into the details of it and all this stuff. But, I'm pretty excited about it, We'll start, how it started was, for me, we had in Jacksboro, Texas. That's where I live. That's also where this was a site of it's called Mudders, Ballers, and Rock Crawlers, an off-road park. There's kind of like a hidden gym that not very many people know about, and it is beautiful. For those of you who don't know about the Team Safari match, it's Competition Dynamics puts on in Logan, New Mexico every year. Josh and myself have shot it twice. Jason shot for the first time last year. It is an ass kick.
Humbling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you came in, 16th, and you were happy?
Oh, yeah, super happy.
Yeah, It's just, it's one of those matches, people have been shooting it since it started, and Jimmy and Zach do a fantastic job with that match, and it's one of our favorite ones to shoot every year. But yeah, that's in Logan, New Mexico with Accufire Team Safari match. We are title sponsors for that one. But I came back from that. I was driving around the property with Mike Rich, who's the property owner who does the Mudders, Brawlers, and Rock Crawlers, and we're up on this beautiful ledge. And I said, we got to have a match here. We've got to. Fast forward, I don't know, a year or 6 months, however long it was. One of our friends who is a surveyor went out there. Derek went out there and did some land survey for us. We got great points. I showed you the data. Yeah, dude, let's go check it out. So we drove up there. We took the Can-Am, bottomed it out with 7,000 pounds of man. Went to the top of this hill, and that was, I guess, a year and a half ago. And then we just from there started planning. Yeah. No, were we with us full time by then?
Not the first time we went out there.
No. Really. Yeah. So you've been with us full time a year now, April. Mm-hmm. Welcome, sir. Congratulations for making it a year. Mm-hmm. And then and then. For a year and a half now, we've been kind of planning it, and with COVID and all the shortage of steel, we've been waiting on steel for a long time. But it's kind of get into the planning. Or I guess the first time we went out there, what was your impression of the place? And how many matches have you participated? Let's back. How many matches have you participated in any way, shape, or form in your lifetime?
I have no idea, but probably around 50.
Okay.
Give or take, probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, I would think you probably
like 20 last year. So
yeah, it's like I thought you're probably close to triple digits by now.
Yeah, probably.
Even small regional matches, but anyway, but carry on. So, what was your first impression of the property when we went out there?
So yeah, we went out there, and the first thing was we need to have lanes, we need to have wood cleared. There was a lot of work to be done on the first visit, and distances to targets were, in some cases, the minimum distance we had was 700 yards.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge when you're setting up shooting events, because if it's a team event, you have to have close targets for carbine, far targets for rifle. That was part of our many visits to the property with chainsaws, you and I going up and down that hill with chainsaws, proofing all the lanes from the firing positions to make sure everything was set and everything was ready to go. Definitely a long process. Yeah.
Well, a long process that typically would take about 3 to 6 months, right, to plan a course, but really to build a range, years.
Right? This is not a shooting facility. So
not even a little bit. Yeah. It is now, though.
It is now. We have steel and we have lanes. So,
yeah.
To take a plot of land and turn it into a match was the biggest challenge.
It was.
Especially not knowing immediately when we got out there. I didn't know, hey, we can shoot this direction, or is there a house back there?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
Things like that. Luckily, Jacksboro is not exactly a
metropolis,
a mega city. So it's pretty generous with fields of fire, but
yeah,
that was the number one challenge, was actually getting quality lanes to actually shoot.
And then so about a year ago, when we decided this is going to be the time we're going to do this match, we decided I guess it was about a year ago, we decided let's do it in March, because we looked at when all the other matches were. Different events. We have trade shows and events. We also have personal lives too. Crazy concept. Or we try to have personal lives. So we started sourcing steel, right? And we started reaching out to people, and then it's still, if people don't know, Target steel is expensive. But the good thing about it, like Ting says, Ting, who XMG Steel, who actually wound up coming through for us and getting this, he goes, the bad thing about the steel business is that people don't buy again, because once you buy a good Target, it's going to last you forever. So we wound up buying some really well made, really well designed, very well engineered,
Very expensive.
very expensive, and he gave us a good price too, which is really crazy, steel that'll last us forever. So now we have these very mobile steel too, because we had to set up and take down. So we got notification from Ting our steel will be delivered 10 days before the match. And one of the things we said is that we don't want to, and this was no fault of Ting, he was on top of it. It was just, that's how our timeline went as far as all kinds of things. But he got it delivered to us, and we had 10 days to when we originally planned to do the match. And we hadn't publicized it, we hadn't broadcast it. We just said, hey, worst case scenario, and we talked about this, when the steel arrives, do we want to try a proof of concept to see if we can pull this match off? And if you can pull it off in 10 days, you can pull it off in 6 months. Or do we want to just hold off? And I think unanimously we decided, no, send it. Let's see what happens. And we got to work. There was a full team, all hands on deck. We were there. I mean, I got to give it to the team. They were in Jacksboro, which is, it's not a close drive, almost every day out there picking up, all week. We started Monday? No, Friday. So I don't remember when we started. We picked up the steel on Friday.
Yeah.
We met on Monday.
That's right, yeah. Monday was the first.
We only had 4 days.
4 working days, right. Really from sun up to sundown, we were out there cutting stuff. Thankfully, we got the time changed, perfect timing to give us a little bit more daylight. But we were up there sun up cutting trees. Mike came out, the property owner with the deuce and a half, got to shoot off the back of that, which we'll get on the stages too. But we did decide, let's see if we can pull off this proof of concept. Let's see if we can actually pull off this match in 10 days, and we did. We were hoping to have 10 teams sign up just so we could have at least, I think we had 6 total teams, and which realistically, once again, for 10 days, and 2 of the teams were people that we did not know. And then, so let's go through the teams. I don't know who we can talk about, who we can. I know there's some teams there that were currently active duty. I don't know if we can talk about that showed up to shoot the match.
Sure.
How do they find out about that? Do you know?
They were told by their sergeant major, who apparently knows me, and made them aware of the match. I don't know where the sergeant major found out about it or where they got it, but within 3 days of us posting it, they were aware. They called me.
Yeah.
They came up and shot it.
And they're about to go shoot the ISC, right?
That's correct.
So it was
their train up for the International Sniper Competition.
And one hell of a train up for us, because we had some brutal lanes on this too.
Sure.
And then we had one team that found out through some Facebook posts, which their team name was the Dirty Civilians. They were great. Those were some of their first competitions.
Yeah. Ended up in second, right?
Yeah, second place. Little sore subject, we can talk about that later. And then we had Team Ramrod. Team Ramrod was great because that was actually the property owner, and a buddy of mine from high school, Doug, who saw it on Facebook, goes, man, I want to come shoot it. I have a partner. He came out. We did some qualifications on Friday night to make sure everybody could shoot at the 500 yard.
He shot right.
Holy crap. He had a Mark 20 or Mark 18 clone. Is that what he had?
Mark 12.
Mark 12. And he shot really well. Mike, who is a property owner, still to this day, I still can't comprehend how well he shot for someone who got that gun the day before, had no idea what he was doing, and we just said, hey, here's a holdover. He goes, what's a holdover? He didn't, and started watching it, and then, dude, the dope was on.
Did great.
First round impacts were impressive, but so Team Graybush was there, was our own team. They were fantastic. And then we had JTAC show up, which is the Triarch team, which was really cool to have them come out. Noe and Tech Lee come out and shoot, and they did great.
They did all right.
So the hardest part about the match was not shooting it yourself, because we set up some pretty badass lanes. I think next year we'll probably have some internal competitions. But what was how did you feel about the turnout, and then
The turnout was as expected.
Yeah.
With a
10-day turnaround.
It goes up on practice score about less than 2 weeks to the match.
Yeah.
We're going to get a poor turnout. but it was a proof of concept. So I see 6 teams. I would prefer to have 10, 12 at least, but it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a broad enough spectrum of competitors to where there was a huge point spread.
Oh, and I forgot the most important team.
The most important team was the Ringers.
Who are these guys?
Just 2 random guys I used to know in the Army. They've done some sniping in their lives.
Honestly though, it was not. I think I forgot about them because it was like a competition with. They were competing against themselves,
Yeah.
and then everybody else.
These are 2 guys that I went to the international sniper competition with twice each, and both of them are fantastic shooters.
Yeah.
They've never shot together before.
Yeah.
But they both shot with me, and
one of them didn't even know he was competing till the night before.
I told him to come up to help me run the match.
Yeah.
And I handed him a gun the day of, and I said, "Hey, buddy, surprise!
Yep.
You're on deck." And they absolutely crushed everybody at the match.
It was.
Many hundreds of points. But that was the good thing. The biggest challenge in designing this course was: is it going to be too difficult? Is it going to be too easy? Are we going to have guys go up there and just miss everything?
Right.
Or is it going to be the type of thing where everything's too easy to hit and it's a 6-way tie at the end of it? But the point spread at the end of the day was over 700 points.
Yeah.
So the winners had just under 1,400, and last place had 600.
You almost call them the losers. It's fair. It's
The
fair.
losers. No, everybody's a winner. They all got trophies. But to have that big of a spread and to have an even spread between the teams was a big deal. So every single target at the match, except for one, it was the longest distance target stuck in the woods. It was meant to be exceedingly difficult.
Yep.
But every other target was hit at least one time, multiple times in
Yeah.
most cases. Most of the events were almost a perfect score, if not a perfect score, on almost every event by somebody. And it wasn't always the first place team that was getting the top score. So I think it was a success in the challenge of the entire match. So it wasn't something where random Joes can't show up and have
Yeah.
fun. And if you're a good competitive shooter, you're going to be able to shine. So I think
And even let's call them Team Sloppy. Team Sloppy they didn't win every stage, which was kind of cool too. Now
the guys that got first place,
Yeah.
no, they did not win every stage.
there was some. Let's talk about this. You actually told me sometimes there is a negative detractor and a positive detractor. Am I saying that correctly? In different in these matches, right? So you can have sometimes where you actually have it brings down the curve. You were kind of
Talking about penalties?
No, you were talking about. So you have stages sometimes where everybody does really poorly, but then one group does really
Right,
well.
separators.
Separators, thank you. Separators.
Separator events are big. That's how you
Separator
win
events,
matches
thank
like
you.
these matches. So if there's an event where everybody scores, say, 80% of the points, and somebody scores 90%, that's
Right.
not a separator. But if it's an event where everybody's doing really poorly and you happen to hit a home run and score 80% where everybody else is doing 20,
Yeah.
that's how you separate yourself from the pack. And it works the same way. There were some negative separator events for a couple of teams that they couldn't recover from.
That's where everybody else does really well and you do not so well. Everybody's hitting 80 and you hit 20,
And
right?
Event 1, Casey Ryback on day 2, that was the name of the event.
Do we have the event names with us?
I have them all memorized.
Okay, let's go through them. Then we're talking about it, right? So let's go through. We had, and just a general overview. We had a 2-day event. Day 1 was a kind of PRS style. We'll go through them stage by stage in a quick fashion, and then ended with 2 assault stages. Day 2 was more of a long range kind of hike and shoot, going up through a hill. We call it the mountain. A hill, shooting back into the field we're shooting from in day 1. It ended in the stalk stage. Day 1, stage 1. The name was Earn This.
Sure.
Well, talk us through that one, the stage Earn This.
So earn This from Saving Private Ryan. Day 1 was movie quotes. Day 2 was action stars, stage names. So Earn This was primary and secondary. One starts on a gun, long gun. One starts on a pistol. Shooting from a vehicle, roof, hood, or trunk, and the other pistol shooter shooting standing. He has to hit 2 consecutive shots.
Pistol shooter.
Pistol shooter to earn 2 rifle shots.
Correct. Yep.
The stage was hit to move on, and it was a round count. So if you ran out of pistol bullets, you didn't earn enough shots for your primary, you had to switch. If you hit all of your targets, you switch, and the secondary is up to shoot. There were 5 total targets, 2 hits apiece. Total event score was 100.
What was the distances on those targets?
Pistol was about 20 yards,
Yep.
hanging 6 to 8 inch circles, and then rifle targets were 10 to 16 inch plates from about 275 to
5.
about 585.
And there was a bonus target on that one too, correct?
Bonus target was a 10-inch triangle. It's a little harder to hit, and that one was at about 350.
3, yeah, okay.
Only one team got to it.
Let me guess. Sloppy?
That was sloppy.
Yep.
They hit everything. They cleaned that stage. They were the only team to clean it. So good on them. They shot almost clean without any misses, but there were, on every stage we did, there was a buffer built in. If you missed with one shot, you could still get a perfect score.
Yeah, and I did like how you planned that with the round counts, right? With each stage having round counts, it made it, I think, a lot faster, and also, hey, you're not going to waste ammo.
It's more fun. I've done
Yeah.
matches where it's hit to move on, and if you miss, you're done.
Yeah.
And if you go up and whiff your first shot that's close, pack it up. You get no points.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be fun.
Jason, how did you feel about stage 1?
I thought it was great. It was surprising how some of the easier shots can be missed by some very skilled shooters. But everything is a learning curve, and so those guys I know are going to be practicing on some pistol when they got home.
How'd you guys do on that stage?
We did okay. I don't remember exactly how we fared as far as score, but I was not disappointed with how.
I should have brought the score sheets, but I think that might have gotten embarrassing for some people.
It'd be a heartbreaker. There's no need for that. So stage 2.
Yeah, so stage 2 with Yippee Ki-Yay. Everybody knows that movie.
Yippee Ki-Yay was the hostage shot. So one of the overviews that I wanted to do with this match was
I love on this, minus 15 if you hit Holly.
Holly was the hostage at
Yeah.
the die hard. So I wanted to evaluate some of the sniper skills that you learn in sniper school to give civilians a taste of what we do and to give Army snipers a little bit more of an advantage. So this was...
And I've got some pictures of this that of the steel setup that it will send to put on B-roll, because it was a pretty wicked little shot.
It was a challenge to proof it, because
Yeah.
I had 2 16-inch diamond targets obscuring a 10-inch circle that was about...
We moved those targets,
50
and
yards,
we
yeah.
did so many different things, and finally just figured out just put 2 targets on the same rack.
The flow of that event went secondary, primary, secondary, primary on targets that were about 330 yards out.
We had 4 diamonds, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
2 diamonds, 2 circles.
2 diamonds, 2 circles. That's right. Yeah.
So both shooters are shooting.
Yeah.
Hit or miss, they move on. And then one of the 2 had to take a shot at the hostage. If they hit one of the white plates, minus 15. If they hit the red plate behind it 50 yards, they get plus 15. And it was a big challenge to proof it. And then during the match, I saw some teams hitting the hostage and some teams hit all white plates.
When you look at the pictures after the fact, you can see where everybody's hitting. Sure. You could see, and it was there. If you looked at it, there was a V. You could see everybody was just barely missing. But and also based off the data, talking to shooters after the fact, they thought the red target was a lot closer, like set right behind. There was about a 50-yard difference. Sure. So I think a lot of people were lasing that front white target, which lasing we can talk about later too is a huge part of this.
It's a skill that is going to get tested.
Yeah.
And the way that we do that, the reason why we put the target so far behind is that bullet trajectory, even though it's close, you can hit any part of that target, but you can't see the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a big challenge, and it's tough to proof that sort of a lane, but it was nice to see, and I wanted people to take multiple shots at it. So that's why the sequence was primary, secondary, and then one of the 2 of you.
You remember round count on that one?
It was
15? No.
I think it was 12.
Okay.
12 each, but depending on who took the hostage shot, somebody was going to have extra rounds.
Right.
Most teams opted to have the primary take the shot with a 6.5 Creedmoor, but some teams had the secondary, and there was a mix of who hit hostages and who didn't.
Hey, Jason, how'd you do on that one?
I smoked Holly dead center of the chest.
Center mass.
On the battlefield, that still counts. You still would have gotten Hans Gruber.
Yeah. Because hey, so your follow-up shot there would have been no hostage in the way.
No hostage in the way. No, I was clear
Yeah.
hostages.
You hit Holly. Some people hit Holly 2-3 times, but that was a good evaluation of taking a shot that's not as easy as just finding range and engaging. You have
Right.
something out there that you're not supposed to shoot, and that wasn't the only lane that had a negative
No, not at all. Well, that's actually,
Brings us to lane.
nope, we got one more for that one. Out there past some trees.
Oh yeah, so
What movie is that from?
Predator. Come on now. Out there past them trees was the best way that I could evaluate target detection skills.
Right.
Some teams had a real hard time finding these targets. Some teams could just look out there with binos, scan, and they would see them. But they were 16-inch diamonds and 16-inch circles
Yeah.
in pairs. And
Painted brown.
they're painted brown, they're in a wood line, they're not super camoed, but if you're just naked eye
Yep.
looking, you're never gonna see them. They were ranging in distances from 530 to 585 yards. So if you found your set, you had to dictate whether it was the left, right, or center set.
Right.
Get on glass and evaluate. Some teams had an easy time hitting them, some teams found them and missed. So it was a very even mix again of ability and,
Yeah.
and skill. Some of the good teams had a hard time hitting those targets, and some of the teams that were struggling picked up some big points on that one.
Which-
If they were all right out there in the middle of the field, right at the wood line, they would have been a joke to hit, but
Yeah.
they were concealed.
Well, when I was picking those targets up, the one that was on the fence line, it had a lot of holes in it, or a lot of hits, right? And then you can see the ones that were hard to hit, there were like 2 or 3 hits on
And
those, right?
there was a curve, some of them were easier to find.
Oh,
some
absolutely,
were
yeah.
harder, so,
And we did that on purpose when we were setting that up.
yep.
Jay, how'd y'all do on that one? You remember? And that was when you guys were shooting out of the back of the deuce and a half, which was freaking sweet, really. It
This
was,
wasn't all just thrown off the ground, this was positional.
yeah.
I really don't remember much about that lane, to tell you the truth.
He probably just smoked it.
Nothing really stood out.
We'll
but-
just say you guys got all hits on it.
Yeah.
I know that they were easier, you were more gentle on how to give a challenge.
Well, and that's because of the terrain. I think if given better
If I bury
terrain,
those targets any deeper, even if you can find them, you won't hit them because they're gonna be
Yeah.
behind too much
yeah,
cabbage.
yeah.
No, I thought it was a really cool stage, that was fun.
Yeah, and then we go on to next deduction option was talk to me, Goose.
Talk to me Goose was,
Negative 25 for the wrong turd on
was
this
a
one.
shooter spotter dialogue.
Yeah,
So if you don't speak the same language, or if you're not concise and accurate with describing targets, you were going to have a big problem.
this was also the biggest pain in the ass stage to clear out all the brush in this one.
This was a challenge for the shooting position, but it
Yeah.
had not a whole lot to do with the event. So on this event, we had 8 pictures of
Turds.
People.
Call 'em turds.
Turds. And 5 of them were to be shot.
Yep.
We would present the spotter with one picture of one of the 8, and they would have to describe it to their shooter. The shooter can't see the picture, the spotter can. That shooter can see all 8 choices on a board. As he's describing, they're very similar looking, so if you're not good at
Except for one of
describing-
them. One of them stood.
One of them was really easy.
It was Jeffrey Epstein. We tried to kill him as much as possible.
He didn't kill himself, so somebody had to kill him.
Somebody had to do it.
So
Someone's got to
he was one
suicide
of the
him.
targets that was,
Hey,
again, we did a
quack
curve.
that one out, that word out.
Yeah, so we did a curve to where some were easier to describe and some were more difficult, but as the targets were presented on the board, you describe it to your shooter, he sees, okay, you're describing the 3rd photograph.
Yep.
Now I transition over to 8 steel triangles. Those steel triangles, left to right, 1 through 8,
Yep.
you had to make your hit. And I think I gave 2 or 3 attempts per shooter because I wanted you to hit that target if it was the wrong one or if it was the right one.
Okay.
It wasn't really about marksmanship, it was about
Hitting the target.
shooter spotter
Yeah.
dialogue on that one. So if you hit the correct target, you got 25 points. That was a big target, the most valuable target in the whole match. But if you hit the wrong target, you get minus 25. So there was a big factor of, am I shooting the correct target right?
Do you remember if we had any negative scores walking away from that one?
Tons of, well, nobody could get negative. I told them that in the brief. If you end up shooting all of the wrong targets, you're getting a 0, you're not getting
Okay.
negative 125.
Do we have anybody zero that one out?
2 teams zeroed it out with good hits and bad hits. One team hit 3 bad targets and 1 good target. I don't remember who that was. Was that you?
Not me.
Okay. So
I have a guess.
nobody got a perfect score on it because the time was 5 minutes, and that's a lot. There's a lot of dialogue that has to happen in that 5 minutes to describe these things because they were, again, 7 of the 8 were very similar looking. So
And you're changing shooters. through
then
the-
you would switch, and that was another advantage I would give to the more experienced guys. When Sloppy got up there, the first shooter up was presented with the 3rd target when they switched, and he didn't even describe it. He just said, it's target 2, shoot. And there was not even any other dialogue necessary because he memorized all the targets.
Yeah.
That's something that you can do, and that's something I built into that lane. only one team capitalized on it. And they were tied for the top score on that event was 75 out of 125. So it was tough.
Yeah.
But again, some teams hit negative points, some teams hit positive points.
That was a cool round.
Some teams had a big challenge. They would it's a guy with a beard, and it's, well, 7 of them have beards, so do something a little bit more.
Yeah.
Talk about facial
Well,
features.
it's funny too that when you the one we did at Competition Dynamics and some other ones that do the same and something similar. It's funny the descriptions you get,
Sure.
and you can tell how close that team is by the
Sure.
way they communicate to each other too.
The way that some good teams will talk to each other would make no sense to any other team.
Yep.
And that's
Mexican dude.
That's what I wanted to evaluate.
Ricardo
was
Montalban is the answer to
your
that one.
dialogue as a team, and some teams did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was another administrative challenge getting it set up too.
It was
But
yeah. It was it was definitely a cool event. And then stage 5, the last stage of day 1 was actually game over, man. The 10-4 longest. For that one was the walkout, right?
That was a walkout shoot where you shot 20, 40, 60, and 80 yards with pistol.
Yep.
3 shots apiece, hit or miss, and then roughly 300 to 600.
Right.
And then the farthest target, just because of the terrain, the next closest thing I could put out there was at 1,003 yards.
Yep.
That's the only shot at the competition that nobody hit. So you're also shooting uphill into wind that's not
The wind.
sitting on the ground. It was a very
And that-
challenging shot.
And that whole area that we call it the mud pits, right? That's where they do the actual mud bogs there. It's a huge. It's probably probably 100-acre pasture. Is that fair?
Sure, yeah.
Surrounded by trees with hills on each side of it and a road, so the wind swirls in there, which makes it a challenging place to shoot.
That event didn't really have any trickery to it. It was just how well can you shoot at progressively farther targets. And again, some teams did great. Some teams, the spotter did better than the shooter did better than the spotter. It was a very mixed up event.
Wind call was something on that.
That was a straight up marksmanship event, so
Yep.
challenging.
Well, and the way we set that up was almost to get you prepared for day 2, right? For day
Day
2 was a complete opposite competition.
Generally speaking,
Yeah.
it was farther targets.
Yeah.
But before we did that, at the end of day 1, we had the 2 assaults.
Yeah, let's get to the assault stage. So assault stage 1, to me, was the coolest stage of the entire match, right?
That is
It was a brainchild that you had. You had all kinds of ingenuity in that, some ranger rope tying, all kinds of things you did in that. But talk to us about assault stage 1.
Assault stage 1, the shooters started in a box with pistols, and there was a tree about 3 yards in front of them. And the way that I positioned the boxes, you're going to have to lean to shoot the targets on your far left or right, depending on
Right.
which box you're in. So 6 targets, roughly 20 yards, I would say, hanging circle plates. Most teams did pretty well. They weren't super difficult to hit. After you hit your pistol targets, you transitioned over to simo shots. So there were 2 sets for shooter and spotter. However the teams worked out their simultaneous shot.
There was about 200 yards, right? Right at about 170, 200.
220, I think is what we
220,
did.
okay.
But that was another thing that we saw, a wide variety of skill set and dialogue.
Right.
So some teams counted down the Army way, some teams counted down in a non-rehearsed way where they just counted to 3 and then shot. I was very surprised to see only one team hit both simo shots.
Sloppy?
No, they only hit 1.
Really?
Than I expected.
So
Do you remember who that was?
I think it was the civilians.
Okay.
So if you both hit, you got points. If only one of you hit or you both missed, you get no points for
Right.
that. So you both had to hit your simo shot. There were 2 of those, and you're separated by about 15 yards, so you had to yell. After that, this was the challenge, was positioning a target in front of another target that would have to be shot and moved out of the way and swing in order to see the target behind it. Again, the way we positioned it, the spotter was shooting the target for no points, just to
Right.
move it out of the way. He couldn't see the red target that was for points. The shooter could see only a white target.
Right.
When it moved out of the way, he could see the red target and time his shots to get hits. Top score on that was 8 hits out of 10.
Yeah, that red target was,
And the bottom score was 2 or 3 maybe out of 10.
yeah.
If that, maybe 1. But if you,
And so just to kind of give you a picture here. So if I am the primary, the bolt gun, I'm looking directly at a target. I'm looking dead on the target. All I can see is a white triangle. So my secondary, the spotter to my left, all he can see is a barrel and the white target that I'm looking at. So when he shoots, or when the spotter shoots, the secondary, it moves that triangle. Now I have a full visual of this red target that I could not see before. The barrel is obstructing that red target. That was one of the things we put in kind of last minute so that the spotter doesn't decide, I'm just going to go and hit that red target. So you have a kind of a split second, and the way that Cav tied the rope, it wasn't just swinging, it was twisting, doing all kinds of stuff too. So you didn't have just a normal cadence. You had to time this well. So the fact that somebody got 8 shots on that is pretty impressive.
that was on par with some of the best shooters out there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of luck involved because if that thing doesn't swing the right way, if you don't hit it just right, some people had a great presentation of the target because it would twist and then just sort of stay while it was correcting.
Mine just spun.
And some guys would have the thing moving the right cadence and then keep shooting it and would kill it and just be stuck right in front of the target again. So you were kind of having to do a little bit for your partner on that one.
So that stage was fantastic. It was one of my favorite ones. I didn't get to see it happen, but it was fun to plan, and we shot it a little bit, just to proof it. It was a good time. So
we proofed it with 5.56 to determine whether or not the target.
we proofed it with 5.56 and one shooter, one gun.
You got out of the way for yourself.
Yeah.
And that was tough, but we moved on directly from there to Assault 2, which was what I designed to be a tiebreaker. So I expected a lot of teams to do very well on it. And the best time at the end would be the winner if there was a tie. So that was a very simple 15 rounds each. Shoot all your pistol targets, then this secondary or whoever was on the rifle at that point would shoot roughly 200, 250, 300 on 2/3 IPSC targets.
The back IPSC was 412, I think it was.
That was a monster to hit.
Yeah, the back one was 412.
Okay. So
Yeah.
It was probably 2, 3, and 4. Roughly.
Yeah, I think that's right. And one of them was completely hidden in some cattails, all you could see.
It was partially obscured by tall grass.
Yeah.
So you shoot sitting or kneeling off a tripod for that. Once you hit close, medium, far, then medium, close again, then you switch until you're out of bullets or out of time.
Yeah.
And one team scored a perfect score on that event.
Who was that? Sloppy?
Sloppy.
Yeah, stupid question.
So most teams scored over 130 points out of a possible 240, but they scored out of 220. They scored 44 hits. So that was a good pistol. There was a small margin of error for pistol and rifle, so you didn't have to do perfect.
Yeah.
You had to be pretty close to actually get through the entire iteration, and they had like 15 seconds left.
Yeah, the assault stages typically they're kind of gas burners, right? The last ones we go to, you're just running and stuff like this. I like the fact that this was a shooting. The entire match, especially day one, was just from the way you set it up and the way we talked about it. It's going to be fun to shoot, and that's exactly what this was. You weren't dying out there, but you had some challenging shooting,
No
right?
road marching, no rescue Randy dragging.
Well, let's get to day 2. A little bit of
They
road
had a
march.
walk.
Yeah,
It
they had a
wasn't
walk.
timed movement.
Yeah.
It was less than a mile.
They walked about 900 yards. So
Yeah.
okay, there was a movement. But yeah, after Assault 2, we cleaned it up for the day. We repositioned some
Yep.
targets for day 2, and then we went to KC Ryback. That was probably the easiest stage of the day, and the points reflected it.
Yep.
It's also a negative separator event for one team because they had a bit of confusion in the sequence of fire. But for KC Ryback, the spotter would shoot first at carbine targets. One of them was positioned.
So just real quick. So on day 2, we were actually shooting from this hill. So you're actually, at this point, you're having dope wind calls and all that stuff was changing constantly for day 2. And you actually set up to have a lot of really close targets and some for carbine and decently far targets for bolt.
Now, we shot 270 degrees worth of field fire that day.
Right.
So it was a lot.
The entire property was called dead. We had a lockdown at every gate. People were not allowed in, allowed
Everybody's
out.
on the hilltop for day 2.
Right.
And the only thing if we go cold for an emergency, then
Yep.
we go cold. But that first lane, the way that I positioned the targets, you had to be standing to hit the
Right.
closest target. And that was a challenge that most teams, when they got there, they had to revamp their plan a little bit. But you shoot close to far, and then transition to your other shooter.
Closest was like 105, is that correct?
Yeah, right over
Yeah.
100, 10-inch diamond, and then it was about 100, 180, and about 300. And most teams opted to shoot all of them from standing the way they shot the
Right.
first one. They transitioned, and then the shooters' targets were 550 to 580, pretty close to each other, but staggered up a hill. They weren't super easy to find.
Yeah.
Um,
So that one was a lot more like Team Safari, right? Was hidden up into, was hidden in
That
some
draw,
rocks.
right?
Yeah, there was a draw of red rocks and trees that we tried to hide the targets in there as much as
and
possible.
You're shooting from rocks, like you're not
Right.
just prone on a shooting mat. So you had enough ammo to have 3 misses and still get through the entire iteration twice. And 2 teams got through it, wasted ammo on
Right.
targets. So a good event for dialogue as well, because you had to know.
And that's the thing too, is that day 1 was shooter, right? There was some spotter.
Yep.
Day 2 was absolutely spotter shooter. There were events that the carbine didn't even get on the trigger, right?
There was one event, that was the next event.
Yeah, so this was a lot more of a shooter-spotter situation than frankly, any competition I've even seen, which I haven't been to a lot of them, but I liked it, and the talk on, and to watch the active duty team talk versus the guys who never shot
Never met
anything.
each other.
Yeah. Another one, stage 2, is Thomas Beckett.
Thomas Beckett, that was a straight up, how well can you spot and correct shots? So you had 15 shots to hit 3 targets, up to 3 times each.
And this is the one where the first few teams ranged the treetop
Yep.
instead of the first target, and it was a 300-yard difference.
Only one team hit that close target.
Right, sloppy.
Sloppy hit it. And they couldn't, they only hit it once. They couldn't hit the follow-up shots because
I think the wind shifted.
they probably shifted wind, but they took their 3 shots at it, moved on to the center and the far target. But seeing them correct their shots was impressive.
Well, it's
They
funny
scored
when
a lot of points on that.
the shooter for sloppy, it's fun to watch. He's one of the shooters fun to watch shoot because when he says, "Oh, I got it." As soon as he clicks in his dope, he's a machine,
Yeah.
and it's actually I get goosebumps watching him.
Once-
When he figures out his dope,
Yeah.
you just know you're going to hear every impact from then on out.
He does a lot of things right when it comes to increasing wind hold for progressively further targets. Once he's dialed in,
Yeah.
he really doesn't even need the spotter anymore at that point.
Yeah, it's
Spotter's still there to
impressive.
correct, but some teams that didn't have that dialogue down,
Yeah.
it was like you were shooting by yourself.
Well, and then we'll get into the win calls later on because there were a couple times people get off. You're like, your win calls were all off. But
I also wanted people to see if you are missing, because they were difficult targets. I think they ranged from 7 to about 900 yards.
yeah,
If you see your impact, and they were all very easy to see the impact.
Absolutely,
They're in a
yeah, they
plowed-
were.
A plowed wheat field where the grass was maybe 2-3 inches tall.
these were actually a lot of these were in the mud pits, so were
Right,
dry. So
right.
you were seeing dirt everywhere.
Blown
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
So if you see that miss, and you can't correct your shooter or give him the mill value or whatever language you're speaking, MOAs or mills, if you can't correct that shot, you're gonna continue to miss. I didn't expect first round hits, there were a couple.
Yeah.
But it was all about how well can you spot, not necessarily how well can you shoot on that one, which is extremely important, especially in a team match. So it was another wide variance in scores
Yeah.
and wide variance in abilities on that one.
I know that one kind of kicked y'all's ass a little bit, didn't it, Jay?
The first target hit.
Yeah.
That one, I had no hits on that, picked up the others. But
Yeah,
the
that's
first
what.
one-
As soon as you guys kind of got on, I remember you
We were one of the, I think we were either the first or second.
You were the first team on that one,
And then we started figuring out close to the last few teams, okay, we were super off on our
that,
distance.
and that that's one of the things as for us doing the match. Next time we're going to go out there, we'll try to clear some stuff out a little bit more. But even still, though, ranging is a crucial part of this stuff, and you've got to figure out: am I hitting that tree line, or am I hitting that? And that's one of the things that we even talked about when we were putting this up. There's going to be a tripod mandatory event that there might going to hit. And you even said someone's going to hit that tree line, and that's exactly what I think the first
Some
3 or
teams
4.
trim some trees.
They did, yeah. And anything else on stage 2? And then stage 3, Billy Zane.
Billy Zane, the counterpart to Thomas Beckett. So I varied it, After I established that these guys can do shooter-spotter dialogue, I needed to mix it up. So on the next stage, we did spotter on pistol, so he had a task, and then he had to get on and spot. But the round counts per targets were different, so it wasn't shoot and correct the same target every time. It was shoot and move on after, I think it was 2 or 3 shots, hit or miss, then you had to shoot the next target. So we varied it a little bit, and that transitioned right into lane 3 or lane 4 of day 2, where they had to move on after one
Right.
shot, hit or miss one shot. So if you didn't take note of that miss when you came back to that target, because you shot all 3 targets 4 times.
Right.
So if you didn't know your miss on that first target and remember it to give that correction when you came back around, you were
And
gonna
see,
do the
that's
same
also
thing again.
stage 3 and stage 4 were stage 2, 3, and 4 were on the same side of that hill, right? The wind, as we were making those moves, you saw the wind start swirling.
The wind shifted to the opposite direction
Yep.
in lane 3.
It did. As we were shooting lane 3, people's wind calls were all over the place,
Yep.
and then you saw that shift. And by the time you got to stage 4, you saw the teams who adjusted for that. You were saying that adjusted for those
I
calls.
could tell the teams that were listening in the holding area for what the other team's wind calls were.
Yeah.
And that's not very valuable because winds change and also different calibers for different shooters. So
Yeah.
the teams that tried to get a little bit of an edge, it didn't help them. That was another event where spotter had a task. He shot carbine targets down a hill standing, and then
Stage 4.
that was stage 4.
Stage 4. Yeah. They were shooting.
What was that one called again?
Stage 4 was Bob Lee.
Bob Lee Swagger.
Who's that guy?
He's a fictional character. But that was a
Makes good hamburgers.
that was a correct single shots. So the
Yeah.
spotter task changed throughout the day to become more rigid. And then the 5th stage on that day was off the opposite side of the hill.
That one was more of there was some pistol involved, and then
that was
it was
time management.
time management because there was a move. That was a 2-position shooter.
Almost every team timed out. You had to shoot 2 targets twice each
Yep.
for shooter and then again for spotter.
And also, that one was on one of the few ones people had a lot of problems actually finding the targets. We hit the targets very well on that one. There's another kind of
weren't-
team safari.
They weren't
We hid in
deliberately-
shadows and stuff like that
They
too.
weren't deliberately hidden.
No, no,
but
no.
They weren't easy to see.
Right, and I think we put them in places where there were rocks similar colors, and also there were some
Some
shade.
shadowing.
Yeah,
Once the guys got on them, most teams didn't
Yep.
have much of a problem hitting. But the fact that it was the only event where you moved from one position, you shot one position and moved to another position and shot with pistol in between. So you weren't just
Yep.
eyeballing the targets
Yep.
and moving. You had to put your gun down, pick your pistol up, hit pistol targets, then go back and basically do the same thing again from a different position. So even though guys just hit those targets from the first one,
yep.
when they got to position 2, they had to find them again because they didn't mark
And the
them in their mind.
Pistol targets weren't easy to hit, right? So we had the 8-inch gongs, I believe, or 1.6, 1/8-inch gong at I think 20-something yards, and the other one was almost 50 yards. Was it?
5, yeah.
Yeah, it was still an 18-inch gong to hit, but still with pistol when you're moving, all that stuff, it's not easy to do.
Yep.
But it was fun to see. So day 2 we kind of wrapped up on top of the hill, and then we made the trek, which is about a mile trek to the staging area for the stalk lane. At that point, we took everybody's guns, took everybody's bolts, took all the ammo, set it aside because we're going to set our sweet little precious cab down range to be the target.
Yeah. I didn't want to get shot, so we pulled bolts.
Yeah. Okay, so just kind of set up on that one. The way what we did there is Cav kind of went and found some limits of natural berms, natural stuff like this, and some pretty thick, overgrown mesquite and birch, and there was thorns and all that stuff.
It was a pretty legit stalk lane for terrain.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like you were crawling through the worst Texas brush ever.
Right.
You could still move with a ghillie suit
Right.
pretty easily, but
And there was some
there was enough terrain to conceal you and enough vegetation to conceal you to move. I think the closest team was maybe 150 yards out.
yeah, they didn't give that team didn't care at all about being seen.
No, I
It was
saw
very
it.
they didn't. They basically walked up there
They didn't even try.
with no ghillies or no camo.
They didn't disregard the spirit of the lane.
No.
They just didn't. They've never been on stalk lanes.
No, I think my understanding so let's go through the different let's spend a little time talking about the stalk lane. So got everybody there, had an hour from the rally point to get to their stalk, to get to their position of fire.
Yep.
Spotter did not have a gun. Primary had their gun with their bolts and their ammo with 2 rounds in our RSO's hands, right? From that point, you had 6 teams. The different strategies for all 6 teams were completely different.
It was vast.
Yes. So let's go front to back. JTAC was the very first team to shoot. Their stock, how would you look at as an experienced sniper, how would you, let's rate everybody's stalking from front to back?
So I believe that I saw 4 of the 6 teams. Because of the way the lane was set up, I didn't have the staff to have walkers the way that they do
Right.
in sniper school.
Which I think we should do that going forward.
I was a little bit more crunched, and honestly, I didn't want everybody. I'm going to bust everybody if it was a real stalker.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make it fair, I should say. So we had it set up to where there was a final firing line, which was the edge of the woods that opened up into the field.
Yep.
The target was pretty easy to find. That's the biggest challenge on a stalk lane. So the first team that got up, when they were getting into position and moving around.
We'll show you some pictures of the B-roll of what the targets are looking at too, so you can see how he blocked everything out. But I got some pictures from
I
it.
got
So.
video of one of the guys moving around so you could actually see.
Yeah.
But once they were set in position, when time was up at the hour mark, I had 5 minutes to scan the entire left
Right.
and right limit. And once everybody was set and ready to shoot, I couldn't see anybody. And that was going to be my parameter to bust them. If I bust you on movement,
Right.
okay. But if you were just standing out there like a sore thumb when it came time to shoot, your points would have been cut in half for whatever you
Right.
achieved on the stalk lane. So there was a little bit of a penalty. You still got to shoot if you got busted. Some teams took shots from prone that were a little bit better in a better position.
Hey, flip your mic over real quick. Yeah, it turned over. There you go.
And some teams
That'll be good.
were shooting off tripod or some variation of
Yeah.
support.
So let's go. Team JTech was the first. Team JTech was the first one to shoot. From my observation, what they wanted, their strategy was to get the best possible shot so they could get the 100 points no matter what, right?
That's true, and they achieved it.
They did. First round impact.
Closest team with a first round impact.
Yep. And they did take their time getting to the start. What time did you guys see them walk up?
Yeah, they just ran straight up to the fence.
Yeah, so that was, to me, that was a good strategy. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. We're not camoed up. Let's get up there and take a shot. You really couldn't see them with your naked eye, but you can see them through binos pretty easily, right? Only because one of the person on the team was wearing really shiny glasses, like really shiny glasses.
Wearing those pit vipers.
Yeah, yeah.
But it worked. I saw him.
Yeah.
When he went to take his shot, I did not see him.
And then the second team back would have been,
Was that you guys?
you guys are dirty civilians.
Yeah, dirty.
Oh, the civilians were in front of you.
Yeah.
They took their shot from a tripod. I believe they had a second round impact.
Yep.
Then we moved back to you guys. One of the key things on a stalk lane that we talked about in the holding area was ballistic loophole.
Yeah.
So if you can see your target, you still need to verify that your bullet will get there without hitting something. You guys had a great position. We have pictures of it that we can flash up on B-roll.
Damn
but
hide overboard.
you could see the target unobstructed, but there was a log about 10 yards, 15 yards in front of you that was just a half inch into your board. And when you took your first shot, you cracked that branch and it was an obvious miss.
Yep.
At that point, you're frozen in place because it's a stalk lane. You had to take your second shot without moving, burned it again, and learn that lesson.
I will say,
sat up for 2 days sweating about that. I was so angry at myself.
you know what? Here's the thing too: is that if you guys don't know old Jason Ricks here, he's had ghillie suits since I've known him for a couple decades now. He's always had ghillie suits and always practiced stuff, and he's really good at hiding. Their hide with the tripod and all that stuff.
Best camo.
It was we've got pictures that we'll show you. He was completely hidden. As a matter of fact, I was walking looking for them. I was like, "Hey, where's Jason?" He's like, "He's right here." I'm like, "Holy crap!" So it was.
My partner did a really good job. So
His partner, Austin Brown, who's another one of our guys here, he's on the road, or he'd be here with us too right now.
I just explained to him what I wanted when we got set up, and he built a hide around me that was extremely effective.
I mean, and when I say if he would have been literally 1 inch higher on his tripod,
Would have been so
perfect shot.
Check that ballistic loophole.
But here's the thing though, with that, you wouldn't be able to see there because the top branch, because there was 2 branches there, the top branch probably would have been in your view.
Stalk lanes are tricky.
Yep. And then so that was y'all's. Unfortunately, you guys did not get a hit on that one, which would have put you guys in second place. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Moved on from there to the active duty sniper team. This is not their first rodeo, so
Yep.
I expected them to be. I don't believe that I saw them at any point.
great hide,
They had a great hide.
second round impact. Are they second round impact?
Second round impact for them.
Yep.
They probably burnt a branch somewhere between them and the target.
Yep.
We moved back from there to
Sloppy.
Team Sloppy.
No camo.
They didn't. They're both very experienced.
They were out in an
snipers.
open field.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the.
Oh, an
things
open
about-
field. They were open in that space. Yeah.
In a stalk lane where it's not a 360-degree stalk, meaning the only thing that you're worried about getting busted by is the target, you can be wide open to every other angle except for the target. And I may have caught them lasing me at one point, just popping up and
Yeah.
popping out with binos. By the time they took their shot, I got nothing. They had a second round impact. Again, I think they burnt a branch, something
Yep.
like that. They didn't clear the loophole. And then the shot of the day,
Man, we need to take some time on this one, okay? So the property owner, Mike, first off, we had everybody stand up. We were looking for him, and we actually could not find them even after that. Well, hey, where are you? He was at the back side of where all. And we got picture of this one too. At the back side of
basically outside the right limit, but it's his property. He gave me the limits.
yeah. So he was in a kind of found like a little hill, was crouched up on this, completely hidden. Said he could see the target. We all looked and none of us could see through that.
I couldn't even spot to set my tripod up to grade his shot to make sure he hit.
Yeah,
I had to go about 50 yards to the right to be able to see.
yeah. It was, but he knew the terrain and every color and everything that was out there so well. He said, "I'm positive." So we let him take the
He was
shot.
The first one set up. He
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, they didn't, he was the opposite. They were trying to stay far back, stay hidden, and he knew he was so confident with the gun he'd never shot before that day before. He said, I know, and we said, all right, take the shot. Took the shot, it was a weird sound, but it was an impact. We knew it was an impact. We go, this SOB shoots through the barrel, through the side of it, just skins it. If it had been a hostage, just a little wing,
Through a steel drum.
and center mass shot. And with the pictures of
It's
it,
a freshly painted target.
yeah.
There was one team that hit none, and there were 5 impacts on it.
And his impact was center mass, and the bullet had gone sideways at that point.
Turned through the barrel.
Yeah.
But it hit.
First one impact.
It's a hit, man.
Mike, if you watch this, dude, we're all so proud of you, and still can't believe how well you shot. It was still, that to me, he's gonna keep that barrel forever too.
Oh, yeah.
And he probably should have kept that target. But we'll show you that too. I still can't believe that was a hit. So, to me, the stalk was probably one of the most fun parts. We're going to obviously do a lot more different things in the stalk next year to be.
It's uncommon to have I'm not going to say a true stalk lane because it wasn't exactly schoolhouse standard, but even to have that aspect where you ghillie up
Yeah.
and you're trying to hide from your target, there's an observer, it just adds a little bit more than just laying down and shooting. And it didn't really take a huge chunk of the day either. Usually the
Yeah.
stalk lane's 3 hours long. This was an hour, a little bit shorter distance, a little bit easier terrain, but
We'll
the
look.
teams had a great time.
Yeah, I think we'll put more into that next year. And then finally, you said, man, I want these guys to every time you go to a match, they tell you to bring your pistol, and you very can shoot your pistol. You wanted to have a pistol burn down kind of in the day on Sunday. Talk us a little bit through that one. Because everybody left. The cool thing about that one, everybody left that stage walking away with a big ass smile on their face,
Sure.
right?
So I stole this lane from a variation of 2 events I've done at the International Sniper Con. So I added what we call the heckle line. So all of the competitors stand about 2 yards behind the shooters, and they're allowed to say whatever they feel like they can get away with to the shooters. If they miss, they can talk trash to them, get as personal as you want to get. The only rules I gave them, you can't physically interfere or throw anything at the shooters, you can't move them
Yeah.
around, but you can say whatever you want to try to make them miss. And everybody got a fair shake at being on the heckle line and also shooting.
It's like that new golf course everybody goes to.
The actual sequence of fire was a 2-minute event where each shooter had 50 rounds. And we had a 20-yard 10-inch diamond, a 25-yard 10-inch diamond, and a 45-ish,
Yeah.
45, 50-yard, 16-inch diamond. Whatever sequence you wanted to work out with your partner, they had to be consecutive hits on the left target and the right target. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then that earned you 1 shot hit or miss at your target for score. And the strategies were, again, even with 6 teams, there was a huge variance in strategy. Some teams had 1 shooter go all the way through the sequence. Some guys shot 2 targets on the left, the other guy would go 2 targets right.
Right.
Variation of every combination you can imagine. I think the top score was 8 or 9 hits for score.
I got 1.
And the bottom of the pack was 1 target. So even, again, it was my biggest...
Top of my pack, bud.
My biggest measure of success for the match was that even with a very small field of competitors, there was a wide variance in high scores and low scores.
Yeah, so that one was awesome, man. And then the cool thing about, so we wrapped up day 2. We had, once again, for a last-minute sponsorship, or a last-minute match, we had some great sponsors. MDT came in through clutch. Stand One showed up on Friday and just dropped off a bunch. I mean, MDT loaded our table, right?
It's nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then my buddy Jared Johnson at STA Blades, who, if you guys don't know, I'm a massive blade nerd. Makes absolutely, in my opinion, the best fighting knives on the planet. Look up STA Blades; they're freaking fantastic. He came through, actually drove that to me the night before, delivered that, and then also do Q coming in with Q dropping us that jumbo shrimp, which I finally got to listen to Jordan with Q. We went hunting this past weekend. He had that jumbo shrimp. It's a Q can. They're all freaking fantastic.
Prize table was estimated a little over $10,000, and that only got split up between 12 shooters.
Yeah, and
So everybody got some really cool stuff.
next year the price table is even more stacked. But you know, a little, since we're here talking about our next match, we are gonna have another match. We had so much fun doing this one. We are gonna hold a match in October, weekend of Halloween, weekend before Halloween. So we will have a match, name to be determined. Pumpkin chunking, pumpkin blowing up, all of that, something's coming in. We're gonna do something fun, but October.
There will be tannerite.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and maybe some glitter. 10 glitter, 10 glitter.
It will be
Glitterite.
most. Patent that. Most likely a 5.56 only match, 1-day match.
Yeah, we'll details to come soon, really quick. Yep. Any last thoughts from you, Cav? About the match? About anything?
It's a good time. It'll be better next year.
Jason?
This was probably my 5th match to shoot in, and my favorite so far. It was a great time, so I loved it.
That's awesome. You know, for me, I just can't wait. Please stay tuned. We want these matches to be for you to guys come out, because some of these matches are intimidating. They're hard. They're not fun. This one will be challenging. All of our matches will be fun, but it's made for new shooters. We want people to come out. We'll teach you. We'll teach you how to do things. We have the Friday dope day, we'll call it, whatever you want to say, where everybody comes out and shoots, and we teach each other, and we go help each other with dope, help each other with equipment. It's an inclusive sport. We want you guys to come shoot with us. So follow us everywhere you can find any social media, Accufire Tech, to let you know. We'll let you know when new matches are coming up. Email us, info@Accufire Tech. Call us. Our phone number's on our website. We look forward to seeing everybody. Cav, Jason, thanks for coming. Everybody show up to the match. Thank you for our sponsors, MDTQ, STA, Stand One. Thank you guys so much for being involved, and we look forward to talking to everybody soon. Thanks again, guys.